Hey folks, welcome back. My name is Cliff, and I'll tell you, I started to do a review for the Acolyte Episode 6, and as I was editing it, I was putting myself to sleep. Instead, I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the main plot points of Episode 6, Teach and Corrupt. If you'd like, I'd really love it if you'd hit subscribe, hit the bell, leave me a message, and let's chat about this. We start off, Osha wakes up on an unknown planet with Mr. Sithy. And somehow he has managed to carry her to his ship, fly across the stars, take her to his cave, tend to her wounds, which also says that, by the way, he did not use force heal as I previously thought. All before Saul and May could even launch their ship off of the ground on Kofar. Saul, in the meantime, is trying to communicate with the Jedi Temple, and honestly, it becomes a Verizon commercial of "Can you hear me now?" because audio transmission suddenly is breaking up.
It's for transmission.
Emergency code 0.
Please. GX, repeat.
May starts to come in and approach Saul with a knife drawn, and Saul is like, "Hey, take the wheel. I'm going to go reset the transponder."
Osha, I'm going to reset the transceiver. Take the wheel.
May winds up not killing him and just sitting down in the pilot's seat. So, back on the unknown planet, our very deadpan Osha, still the same old look on her face, starts to follow Mr. Sith to a pool where all of a sudden this becomes a CW network show. He strips down and goes for a swim. Osha grabs his lightsaber and Mr. Sith is like, "Hey, how does that big thing feel in your hands? I bet you haven't held one since you left the Jedis."
How does it feel?
Feels good, doesn't it?
And at that point, Mr. Sith is like, "Well, you either get in here or I'm bringing my big Schwartz saber out of the water and put my clothes back on." And they continue an awkward conversation, all the while he's getting dressed.
You're not gonna join me. I'd like to put my clothes back on.
As he was dipping in the water, we also get a really good view of scars all along his back. To keep things less convoluted and jumping around story to story, Mr. Sith admits that he once was a Jedi long ago.
You speak as if you were a Jedi.
I was. A long time ago.
And with no emotional connection to what she's saying, Osha says, "Hey, you killed York." To which the Sith replies,
You killed Yord.
A man who didn't hesitate to turn you in for a crime you didn't commit.
and then she goes, "Hey, but you killed Jackie."
You killed Jackie.
And where did you think that was going to go? You would have had the same relationship with her that you have with your master. One-sided.
And he says, "Well, you could have never had a relationship. You need someone that you can go much deeper with, as deep as you can go."
Why do you love people who can only go so far? Who can't go as deep as you can?
And really, the only thing missing at that point was someone stroking his big old lightsaber. The Sith then explains that his helmet is made of cartosis. Apparently, this is a metal from Legends that is able to deactivate lightsabers.
Kurtosis. Handy against lightsabers.
And also used a lot like young Padawan's training in his full sensory deprivation.
But also a sensory deprivation headpiece. Like we used as younglings.
After all of that explanation, essentially, Osha then just has to put on the helmet and starts breathing like Darth Vader. And that's where they roll the credits and her breathing over the credits. I imagine that they thought they were doing something really creative there, and honestly, it was just kind of a fail for me. So let's go back to Saul and May. He's reset the transceiver, and the holo transmitter is back up and running, and wouldn't you know it, the power to the entire ship suddenly just goes down.
Coruscant 5112 to pilot GX8, you are cleared for transmission.
Saul looks at May and says, "Hey, why don't you go take a look at this?" And once again, rather than doing anything, she just does that and heads off and finds the pip droid that Basil had plugged in a little bit earlier. And as she's standing there looking at this pip droid, Basil comes in, does some sort of karate kick, immediately starts humping her leg, stomps on her toe, and runs away.
Hey, relax, hey, whoa, relax, okay?
And the pip droid then sprays her in the face. At this point, she screams, grabs the pip droid,
What if I reset you to factory settings?
and outright murders him and just does a factory reset and shoves him onto a different body and scans the electrical and goes back, finds Saul and say like, "Hey, we got 5 minutes."
Have you told me everything that happened on Brentalk?
You were very young.
And he's about to do a big reveal of what happened 16 years ago when the power comes on.
But I'm not now. You can tell me.
At that point, May starts to run towards the bridge. Saul stuns her.
Hello, is anybody there? Can you hear me?
Identify yourself.
My name is...
Chains her to the table and says, "Well, we're now going to have a conversation about what happened 16 years ago."
We have a lot to do. But first, you and I are going to talk. I've had 16 years to think about what I would say to you if I ever got the opportunity.
And they cut away, and that's when we flipped back to the Osha Sith story, and we never got a resolution to it. Now, while this is going on, Vanestra gets the message that Saul's entire team has been wiped out.
What is it, Mark?
We received a distress call from Master Soul. Apparently he's on a mission in the Outer Rim.
What did he say?
There were casualties.
Who?
The connection was faulty, but it sounded like the entire team.
And she ensembles a rescue mission to Kofar. And what we then get is a joke, probably an inside joke, between Hedlund and her wife about not being able to travel in hyperspace because she gets sick.
You get nauseous when you travel through hyperspace?
I don't get sick. I find it unsettling.
Honestly, could care less about this information. They arrive on Kofar, land, and of course the previous team needed a tracker with scent, and Venestra just points and says, "This way," and off into the jungle they go. They stumble across all of the dead Jedi. Venestra is like, "Hey, what do you see?" And the Jedi with her is like, "Well, I see this and this." And she's like, "No, but they were all killed by lightsabers." At which point the Jedi's like, "Hey, you don't think Saul did it?" And she's like, "Hey, that's quite an accusation." In the meantime, one of the moth things start to come down out of the trees, and she whips out her lightsaber and, lightsaber whip, and whips this thing in half.
His sole aim was to leave no survivors.
And yes, that's right, it's a lightsaber whip. Apparently this was also in Legends and now has come to canon in the live movies or live show. And interestingly enough, we're now left with two things. One, the Sith has scars on his back that looks like whipping, and two, Venestra uses a whip. So what do we know from this particular episode? Well, not a lot, other than Venestra probably is responsible for whipping Sith, Kieran, I can never pronounce his name, and that this episode also ends exactly the way it began, without any additional information really. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't learn anything new. We only have 2 episodes left. One has got to be the flashback of what happened 16 years ago from the other point of view. And then we have to wrap up all of the plot lines for the season, and or not. That might just be the way that they leave things off, is completely unresolved. Because the way things are going, everything will be left open-ended, because I bet she was counting on a season 2, and honestly, I don't think that's going to be delivered. If you enjoyed this, please, or if you hated it, hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down, subscribe, leave me a message, and well, I will see you in the next one.